Hi friends, welcome back. This is the second part on the series Selling and TA. In the first part, I covered the point that how it is important to build assertiveness in selling. And if you have to be assertive in selling, you need to understand this theory of transaction analysis. It helps you improve your interpersonal skills and your ability to communicate with your customer. So what was transaction analysis? Transaction analysis was a theory put forward by Leonardo Eric Berne, and this theory talks about that human personality is made up of three ego states known as the parent, adult and child ego state. In this part, we are going to look at what each of these ego state means and help you understand these ego states better. So let's start with this. What is an ego state? So ego state is an entire system of thoughts, feelings and behaviors through which we interact. Like Winter Pinfield had talked about, that these ego state, our personality is fixed by the time we are 5 to 7 years of age. Two of these ego states, the parent ego state and the child ego state, is something that is fixed in your personality. Once you are 5 to 7 years of age, these patterns of behavior are something that are fixed and you really cannot change them. And there is one of the ego states known as the adult ego state, which is free of this. So when we deal and interact with people, there are patterns from where we deal and interact, and there are places where we deal from absolutely freshness. Now, understanding this each ego state, trying to understand what kind of an ego state you hold is a key to transaction analysis. So the first ego state is the parent ego state. Now, what does the parent ego state do? This is an ego state that wants to take control. The purpose of this ego state is to do good when the others are not doing it. Now, what do we mean by this? Whenever the environment is in your favor, wherever you feel powerful, wherever you feel you are in control, this ego state will come into play. And there are patterns. In your reaction, you will be able to create these patterns and you will be able to deal out of that. So, and parent ego state is essentially a borrowed part of your personality. What does this mean? It means that by the time you are 5 to 6 years of age, some authoritarian figure in your upbringing, you've seen it and you've seen him, how he takes control or how he does good. Maybe he's your father, mother, some elderly person in the family. You associate with that kind of behavior as an appropriate behavior. And when you are left in a situation where you have to take control and you have to take charge, you will play those patterns or replay those kind of behaviors that you have seen some elder person do it. So it's a borrowed part of your personality. Your whole attitude gets developed because these are reactive part of your personality. In a moment when you come into control, this thing will come as a part of a play. You will understand this better when you see what are the different subsets of the parent personality that may be there. So the second part of it is that there are different parents that you may get consolidated into depending upon the multiple things that you have experienced during your childhood. So there is something called as the nurturing parent and there is something called as the critical parent. A nurturing parent can be positive and negative. Critical parent can be positive and negative. So I'll give you an example of this. A classical example is, say you are a parent authority. You are the parent and your child in front of you is playing with a glass bottle. And if this glass bottle he drops and the glass bottle breaks, what is your instant reaction? I mean, you are just sitting and doing something else and this thing happens. Now, there may be 4 reactions depending upon what kind of parenting or what kind of a parent ego state is there in you. And you will instantly react out. The first thing that you will do will come out of that fixed parent ego state that you hold. So what are the 4 reactions, probable 4 reactions that we will try and talk about? The first reaction would be probably, you will say, hey, you broke the bottle, now go and study. No more play for you. So there is a reprimand that you will give in. This is the common critical positive parent would do. If you break that bottle and in anger you slap that kid or you hit that kid, this would be a critical negative parent. My parenting, my father was a critical parent and I have realized that I also have the critical parent incorporated in me. A nurturing positive parent, what it would do, hey, you will get hurt, let's be careful, let's clear the glass. This is a nurturing positive parent who will try and protect the child. My mother is a classical example of a nurturing positive parent. Whereas if you start laughing and you find it humorous that he broke a bottle and you're not worried that he will get hurt, nor you're reprimanding, then you're a nurturing negative parent. You're overindulging, and I've seen many people having this kind of parenting too. So depending upon the kind of response that you most probably do most of the time, you will be able to get a good insight into understanding this kind of parent. Now, a classical example where I'll give you, I had a very turbulent relationship with my dad. Lots of fights, and I ran out of the house a couple of times. My dad was a critical negative parent, and after I read Transaction Analysis, I realized that I am dealing with this critical negative parent, and if I engage into his parent, I will always land up having a conflict. So I later on very consciously chose not to engage my dad's parent ego state, get into him with an adult ego state as a child ego state, and the relationship with my father improved great deal. So it is important that you understand which is your ego state and which is the ego state that the other person is talking on. You will be able to improve your relationships there. The second ego state that we will try and look about is your child ego state. Child ego state is an ego state which comes into play when the environment is not under your control, where you feel that you have to experience what is being dished out at you. This is an ego state whose purpose is to love, to change, to enjoy, to feel, to experience. So this also is an ego state which, like the parent ego state, is a borrowed part of your personality. By the time the kind of childhood you've had, the kind of child ego state is fixed into you, is something that you cannot change as you grow. So there are patterns in which you will behave. This is also a borrowed part of your personality, and there are again 2-3 different types of child that you may get into. One of the child ego state that you will get into is called the natural child. The natural child can be positive, negative. There may be an obedient child that is positive and negative. There's a rebellious child, which probably is another third variety that they talk about. So like the example of breaking a glass bottle, I'll give you a classical example. Let's say talking about learning to ride a bike is an experience that everyone would enjoy. So as you grow old, 12, 13 years old, and you feel the urge of driving a bike, it's a natural urge that should come in every child to experience that. However, depending upon the kind of childhood that you have in the past, a natural positive child will very spontaneously be able to learn, get onto a bike and start driving that. A natural negative child, on the contrary, will so overindulge with the bike that probably he'll start to learn a wheelie or do speed biking and thereby get into an accident. Whereas an obedient child will wait for a parent to push him to learn the bike. Till then, he will let it go. He'll say, "Arey, God knows it will be risky." Depending upon what kind of parenting he has got, he will stay away from it. A obedient negative child, because of some past experiences in his childhood, he will have fright with the idea of driving a bike. He will not go or venture nearby. So depending upon the kind of responses that you have got to these experiences, you can try and talk about which ego state, what kind of a child ego state you have. A classical example is also drinking alcohol, consumption of alcohol or drinking a cigarette. I mean, these vices also come in, or you will get into these vices, or you will pick up these habits primarily because of the kind of child ego state that you have in you. And the next part of the ego state is a rebellious ego state. I realized this because I've got a rebellious child ego state. Primarily when you have got split parenting. I had got a critical negative father and a nurturing positive mother. So there are both these responses that are there. So whenever I'm dealt with authority, there's one point of me that when pressure comes in, I tend to flee that situation. Our ability to understand our own ego states and probably make a sound guess on what kind of an ego state the opponent is operating on, you will be able to interact well. So now let's come down to the third ego state. The third ego state is the adult ego state. Unlike the parent and the child ego state, the adult ego state is not a borrowed part of your personality. There is no fixed pattern there. This ego state plays a very important role to inform yourself and the others with an accurate data. It's about data information. So when you are in a business setting, when you are in an environment, when you talk to strangers, when you go into the market to buy stuff, when you are dealing with other people, naturally this ego state needs to come into play. This is a ego state where the environment should not play a very important role on you, because you are doing a transaction. Work environment is a neutral environment. You did not come out of patterns, and you can it's about being objective in your communication, in your dealing with people. However, this ego state usually doesn't remain free. This ego state gets contaminated. Either it gets contaminated with the parent ego state or gets contaminated with the child ego state. And thereby, when you are out into a business environment, when you are trying to do selling, when you are trying to interact with people, when you are trying to build relationships, this ego state will come, the contamination will come and sabotage your effectiveness. So TA helps you understand how you can keep these contaminations away. To give you an example on the contamination, my dad's adult ego state was contaminated with a parent. He was constantly a parent. So there would be, most of the time he would reprimand. So I was not a very good student when I was studying, and most of the time barely managed to pass. So in the first time I received a first class in my 12th exam, I ran up to him with my mark sheet telling him that, see dad, I've got a first class. I thought he would appreciate, but that was the natural response that an adult should have given. But because he was a contaminated adult, he gave me a massive scolding. And the scolding also had certain comments where he said that, now throw that mark sheet away and put some stains on it and put it into a dustbin. I thought he's gone bonkers and he's gone crazy in giving those kind of comments. But later I realized that it is his appreciation that he wants to give, but he cannot give an appreciation. His parent ego state has hijacked the adult ego state, and the parent ego state can only give commands and only fire, because his parent ego state is a critical parent. So though his adult had to talk, his critical parent was communicating, and it almost became a scolding for me. When I understood this, most of my time, my dealing with him, you had to make allowances that he also cares, but his ability to show care comes as a reprimand. So if this example has given you some idea, there are patterns that we operate. There's another classical place where I talk about where I have to behave like an adult, and sometimes this adult ego state comes into play is while I'm taking a training session and probably people don't listen to me. Now I need to gain in control. As an adult, I should be able to say hello, please listen, and be good about it. But there are times where your parent hijacks this adult ego state, and I may snap. My whole body language, my whole tone of voice gets hijacked, and I almost operate like a critical parent trying to take control and make everyone get in its place. Once you recognize that your behaviors, your actions, your communication, your facial expressions, your tone changes depending upon which ego state is getting hooked, you will be able to control it better, and thereby you will be able to have your communications better. In the next part, we are going to talk about what are the various transactions, how these ego states transact with each other, what are the different types of transactions, and then in the subsequent part, try and see how we can apply it to selling and thereby enhance your selling effectiveness, enhance your ability, interpersonal effectiveness, and thereby your ability to build relationships and be more productive. Keep watching. God bless. Thank you very much.